joining us. Christina, can you just confirm that you're still seeing Vermont
Yes,
as
I
the
am.
primary? Okay, excellent.
Yep.
So thanks everybody for joining this webinar. This is kind of the result of some neat bridge building and brainstorming between me and Christina and Ralph and other folks. It's been a while since the Agency of Agriculture has collaborated on some intentional messaging and communication with VNLA, but we realized that it's about time, and it's been a wonderful partnership so far. And the idea here was to just kind of reintroduce. It's been about, I think we realized almost a decade or so since there was a lot of crossover between us. So we're excited to be working together on this. So I asked Christina to say a couple of words just from VNLA's perspective, and then I will do a presentation that kind of covers the scope of reintroducing what plant health, what our section does within the Agency of Agriculture, and then talking a little bit about a really exciting and important initiative that the Agency of Agriculture has been stewarding for the past year and a half. So, Christina, I'm going to give it over to you.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Christina Macklin, the Executive Director for the Vermont Nursery and Landscape Association, and Ralph Fitzgerald is also joining us. He's on our Board of Directors and our Program Committee, and I just want to thank Emily and everyone on this call that's a part of the Agency of Ag for just collaborating with the association in a more robust and meaningful way moving forward. We've been working on just sort of reconnecting more and more and staying in touch, frequently. Judy's been great about submitting, and your team, quarterly articles for our newsletter. But this is just so great to be able to offer a webinar series to our membership and just to sort of really work in a more collaborative way for our members. So thank you. Ralph, I don't know if you have anything to add, but. Oh,
Nope.
He's
Ralph's good.
Good.
Okay.
Take it
All
away.
Right. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. So heads up, Christina and I were talking that we are both okay with the imperfection that this might end up being with the technology and stuff. So just bear with me as I get this set up. Okay. So for those folks who are not familiar with our team at the Agency of Agriculture, my name is Emily Inouye, and I'm the Plant Health Section Team Lead of the Plant Health Section within the Plant Industry Division of the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. And the team that supports me on an everyday basis at the agency include Judy Rozovsky, who is our state entomologist and is also the state plant regulatory official. So she deals a lot with the federal liaison and information and communication with that. We also have Ben Dillner, who is our state survey coordinator and really focuses on introduced pest surveys and communication with our regional other states around what they're doing and making sure that we're connected and plugged in at the regional level. And we also have Stephanie Smith, who's the plant industry, one of the deputy directors. And she basically comes in and fills all the gaps, which is fantastic and is very specialized in policy stuff. So that's our team at the Agency of Agriculture. It certainly isn't our work alone, and I'll get into our collaborations in a little bit. But focusing on what we do first, we're charged with this kind of large, ambiguous charge of protect Vermont's agriculture and environment by working with state and federal partners to prevent, detect, and respond to harmful plant pests and diseases. This runs the gamut. This includes insects, plants, and all these other organisms, fungi as well. So how do we do it? One of the things that we do, and is probably really familiar to some folks on this webinar, is our inspections and regulation programs. So the plant health section does hold the responsibility of going out and inspecting nurseries and making sure that the stock being sold is up to our standards here in Vermont, which is pest-free. That's important to us and should be to everybody, I believe. We also regulate and monitor plant importation. So plants that come into the state, as well as plants that are being exported to other states. And then we also regulate and oversee the noxious weed rule, which I will talk in a little bit more detail in a little bit. Pest and disease management, in the sense that we work closely with other partners to figure out what is the best course of action for certain emerging pest concerns. We actively survey and monitor for these using visual inspections at nurseries, as well as trapping surveys throughout the state. And I think the next webinar is actually going to focus on more details about these programs within our section. So Judy and Ben will be talking in more detail about what we're surveying for, how we do it, and those details. We also work closely with UVM Extension and the Urban Community Forestry Program over at FPR. Those folks are basically just extended team members of ours, or we're part of their teams, whichever way you want to look at it, because we do collaborate and work so closely together on messaging, because we all want the same thing, which is to protect Vermont's landscape. Collaboration, therefore, is extremely, extremely important. And I feel like Vermont excels in this more than any other state that I've actually observed over my past 20 years of doing this. And it's because Vermont is so small and its ethos and values are largely aligned across the different sectors, which is extremely special and unique. And because of that, my professional colleagues end up being my personal friends and people I authentically care about. And that goes a long way towards doing this work, because it takes it away from just being an intellectual, everyday exercise of bureaucracy and policy, to something that is meaningful and truly special, and something that I think we need more of, more than ever right now. So how do we do this, and what gives us the permission or the authority to do this? Unfortunately, we do have to sink into the policies and bureaucracies, because that's what the system requires. That's fine. But 6 VSA Chapter 84 is a statute nested within ag, but it specifies pest survey detection and management for the state. It's a stat, and in that statute, it mandates a cooperative relationship between the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets and the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation. And I bring this up because there's always the big question of, why is the Agency of Agriculture involved with forest pests? And it's because of history and just ways the systems have developed over time. The agency and agriculture in general is where a lot of the power has lied. I mean, I think it's important to just name that. And that's why you see some of these remnants and where some of these laws and statutes lie. But it doesn't mean that it can't be shared power and shared purpose and intention. So within that statute, it specifies that we have to work closely together. And what the aim is recognizing that the Agency of Agriculture rightly should have the expertise and the authority to, I guess, lead on agricultural pests. And it only makes sense for the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation to take the lead on forest pests, because that's where the expertise is. So that's how we kind of separate it. It's separate in so that we can function efficiently. In 2023, Kathy Decker, who's a longtime staff member over forester at the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation, reached out and said, why don't we get together our official memorandum of understanding that had been discussed for many, many, many years prior to this. And we finally sat down, FPR and plant health section. We said, so how do we just codify how we work together? And so what ended up developing was this team that we identified, made up of the plant health section, the forest health or forest protection crew at FPR, as well as the urban and community forestry team. And UCF, Elise is here, she leads the program over there, but they straddle both FPR and UVM extension. So with that kind of core group, we're able to create a network here that we can reach out to and ask for support and help and work together. We bring in different perspectives, different ways of knowing, as well as different resources. So it's an efficient way. With that, it's not only us, we also work really closely with the Vermont Departments of Environmental Conservation and the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Vermont Agency of Transportation, and then our federal partners as well, USDA, APHIS, the Forest Service, and others. So all of this work is not siloed or singular. It's very much intertwined and connected with each other. We work very closely with Savannah, who's the plant pathologist over at FPR, and she helps us out with the plant pathology stuff. So we do have a robust network in place here in Vermont that supports that early detection, protection infrastructure that we're trying to aim for. So best way to describe it is that this relationship between Agency of Ag and ANR is cooperative and a mutually supportive relationship. So what do we work together on as examples for the nursery industry? Both of these are hemlock related. Surprise, surprise. Hemlock woolly adelgid and elongate hemlock scale. Unfortunately, it's become a headache. We have a quarantine in place for HWA, which it describes and defines how to import hemlocks. But we do not for elongate hemlock scale, which is also popping up to be an issue right now. And you're going to hear a lot of us kind of continually point out to EHS at a lot of our presentations, and that's just to try to, you know, flag it for the nursery industry. We're seeing EHS come in on nursery stock. We work closely with our experts and partners over at FPR. They have let us know that they are extremely concerned about EHS getting into our hemlock forests here in Vermont. So we need, and we also have a neonic ban now. So we need to be careful about how we treat these. And we're asking people, if they're going to bring in hemlock nursery stock, reach out to your suppliers and ask them specifically how they're treating for EHS as well as HWA. Those two treatments are different. And you are allowed to bring in hemlocks that have been treated with chemicals, neonics that aren't allowed here in Vermont. And I just need to say that clearly because it's important for the protection of our forests. So let's see, modernizing Vermont's noxious weed quarantine. I was sitting here trying to figure out what do I talk about from our programmatic standpoint? That's, you know, we have a lot of areas that we cover, but this one is hands down a really important one on many different layers. And it's created an opportunity for us to really work collaboratively, not only with our state partners, but with other nonprofit partners, you know, VNLA, bringing in the larger community of interested parties in how we work in this invasion ecology arena. So we have something called the noxious weed rule in Vermont. That's the rule in place right now. And it is meant to and designed to regulate introduced plant species that could cause ecological harm or economic or agricultural harm to Vermont. And the old one was old, which is why we needed to modernize it. The last time it was updated was 2012. And there were things that needed to be updated from an operational point of view. Number one, the most important thing was creating the ability to update a quarantine list without having to reopen the rule every single time. And for those of you, I didn't know this. I didn't want to know this, but now I have to know this because I'm writing rules. Opening a rule is a process. It costs money. It takes a lot of time. It's not fun for the people writing it. It's not fun for anybody really, but it's really important because rules are where the policy informs the public about what is happening and what is expected of them. It also allows us to understand what it is that we're supposed to do. And one of the things that we couldn't do was update the list. For example, if kudzu was, suddenly too, kudzu, actually, let me put it this way, kudzu is not on the noxious weed quarantine list. That's a problem. And that should say everything in and of itself. We have, because of this, we designed a process as a stopgap measure back in 2023, I think, recognizing, it's not acceptable that things like kudzu are not on the list. Things like stilt grass and porcelain berry and water hyacinth, those weren't on it. So we ended up creating a process with the Secretary of Agriculture. We ended up designating plant pests. And just to be transparent about that process, we worked closely with our partners in A&R. We went to each department and we said, what are your top 2 and top 3 introduced plants that you are most concerned about that isn't on the list right now? And they came back and they identified those for us. And then they created scientific pest risk assessments for them. And we went through it as a team so that we could justify it. And we all had eyes on, we all agreed. And then we had our Secretary Tebbets declare those as plant pests. The point and hope is to absorb those pests into the quarantine list once we have this sorted out. And we're in the process of it. It's going through the process and hopefully the new rule is going to be in place by this summer. And I'll talk a little bit more about the details there. It creates a much more responsive system for managing emerging risks because it'll allow us to focus on the things that are truly real concerns and something that we can do something about. And it also focuses on the pathways and not only the organisms themselves. We need to, hold some responsibility here. And a lot of the messaging and the language and the way we have come to understand these problems focus away from the human systems. And that's something that we want to change. And we think that Vermont is in a unique place to start introducing that conversation into just the government space. So what does it do? Like I said, the quarantine list, it will allow us to add species through a defined scientific process without reopening the full regulation each time. And this is really neat. There's also an official watch list that is being introduced and included into the rule. And it's a new tool. We view it as a tool. It allows early tracking of plants that may pose risks without immediate regulation. And this is a way We can communicate with the region, with other parts of the country that are receiving and gathering other information and doing scientific work on this stuff. And then we can add it to the watch list and offer it to Vermonters and other people regionally who want to know about what is it that the scientists in Vermont who understand things at the regional landscape level are actually flagging. They may not be regulated now, but from a nursery and green industry perspective, this allows businesses to make informed, care-based choices on their own, because we believe everybody wants to make the informed and right decisions. The hurdle is making sure you have the right information to make those decisions. So this watch list creates an opportunity for nurseries and the members of the public to keep track of what it is that we're concerned about, coming up. And we're excited about that opportunity. It takes some pressure off of us because it's not reactive. What it is it creates space for being responsive. And that's something that we haven't been great at. We need to change. Clear guidance. And we include specific BMPs, best management practices, that allow and specify what is and isn't allowed. And there are going to be some people that aren't happy with this, and that's okay. But a lot of this, we need to name it, is the Agency of Transportation. We work with the Agency of Transportation. We understand, and they understand, so a lot of all the issues related to introduced and ecologically harmful plant spread. And they want to do something about it. And we're pragmatic and honest. There's only so much we can do. So we need to focus on what actually works. So we provide those guidelines and we worked with AOT, and it's the best we can do right now. And I think it's important for people to know that reality is being incorporated into these lenses and decisions now. For some reason, it was a little disconnected in the past. So the message was, we can do something about everything. Just know what it is that you need to know about, and then go out and destroy or, panic. And there's a different way of messaging urgency and importance. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about in a second here. But just as a heads up, it does also provide for a permitting outlet. We recognize that we don't know or understand everything yet, and we need to keep a door available for people to introduce new concepts and different reasons that we might not yet know about. And that includes cultural reasons. It may not mean that we're going to automatically say yes, probably not, but we should at least have the humility to say, we need to keep the door open because we don't know. So that's why we have the permitting allowance as well. It's an act of acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers. I think there is a question about how do these plants get added to the quarantine list, and it's an important process, and it is one that was designed with thoughtfulness and scientific grounding in mind. So I just want to be transparent and show you what that process is. And it begins when somebody discovers or detects and introduced plant species that we're concerned about here in Vermont, or preferably something that has already been flagged, and we are actually actively, like kudzu, it's not here yet. We would want to identify that and consider it as something that we want to review for addition. And the identification and watch list, these plants need to, they can't just arbitrarily be added. They need to be species that legitimately raise concerns due to their potential negative impacts on our ecosystems, agriculture, or economic systems. So we do have a certain criteria to be considered. We do, unless it's an early detection of something that just comes out of nowhere, we do want the species to be added to the watch list first. Instead of jumping and becoming immediately added to the quarantine list. We understand that there may be situations that require that, and there have been kind of escape hatches for that emergency. But generally, just for the purposes of transparency and collective work, we believe that species ideally should be added to the watch list first, so everybody gets a chance to take a look and, understand what might be coming down the pike. And then a pest risk assessment is created, and this assessment it can be written by anybody. We have a pest risk assessment form, but we look at factors that are scientific and important to us, like the reproductive capacity of these species, the pathways of the spread, climate suitability, and as well as the ecological and economic impact. So it isn't just a one-page synopsis. This is more like a 12-page scientific analysis. So just to let folks know that this isn't arbitrary. This is rigorous and, reviewed by people who know what they're doing. So once we go through a pest risk assessment, we make a recommendation, if that's what we need to do, to the Secretary of Agriculture. And then the Secretary, we're going to have a 3-tier system where, the first tier are plants that don't exist here, like kudzu. Tier 2, limited distribution, something like stilt grass. It's not here, but it's not all over the place, and could be manageable, and you can do something about in isolated populations. And then there's tier 3, which is the well-established and really not feasibly removable at the wide landscape level, and that's things like knotweed and bittersweet, where we believe that there are smarter, more localized ways to understand these challenges. And then once the Secretary decides to make a recommendation of an addition to the list, there will be usually a 30-day public comment period. But this does allow for us to act quickly and respond when there's something that needs to be added. And it ensures transparency as well. So just wanted to let folks know about that. And I'll keep Christina in the loop about the process and progress of the rule, because there will be a public comment period during this process, and I encourage everybody to participate if they want on that.